Hello, this is Brian Foster. We are coming to you on the Cardiac Radio Facebook page, live on Sunday night, February 9th, 2020. Welcome to everybody to our program tonight. We are continuing on talking about the gospel according to Spiritism. We are on chapter 10, and chapter 10 is titled Blessed Are the Merciful. Now, there is a very good reason for this. But first, let me tell you, please tell your friends about Cardiac Radio. You can get that app on your Apple or your Android phone. You can just go to the PlayStation or the App Store on your Apple phone. Look up Cardiac, Kardec Radio. It's a free app. You can get Cardiac Radio programs 24 hours a day. You can also join our Cardiac Radio Facebook page. You can watch the live streams of people that you'll see. There's a lot of different Spiritist literature and presentations posted to this site. So please join Cardiac Radio Facebook page. I also have this video of mine will be posted tonight to my YouTube and my BitTube channels. So again, if you would like to also share this presentation with others on Facebook, please subscribe, ring the bell on YouTube and BitTube. Please comment and share the video to other people who are interested in Spiritist literature. And Spiritist literature is a good reason because first, the Gospel According to Spiritism is a great book. I recommend it to everyone. And secondly, I recommend everyone, if you're interested in the spirit world, why we're here, please read the Spirits book. That really should be the first book you read. That was the first book that I read. I found it in PDF. You can get this, the Spirits book, or the Gospel According to Spiritism. You can get that on a Spiritist site I have on my blog, nwspiritism.com. I have a picture of Allan Kardec. You can go to a Spiritist bookstore and get all these different Spiritist books. You can also find them on Amazon. And you can find them on PDF too for any of Allan Kardec's books. So I recommend that immensely. You can't do better than that. Now, Spiritism, remember, was codified. Allan Kardec was called the Great Codifier in the 1850s by asking a series of questions, 1,019 questions to different mediums, and he didn't codify the answers unless the answers were the same or very similar. So let's get into what we're talking about tonight, and that is blessed are the merciful. Now, doesn't that sound nice? But there's a very good reason for that. It's not just to be nice and loving in this life. So let me get into it and let us understand the things. This is the great part of the Gospel According to Spiritism, is many things that Jesus said, they have a back meaning. And it's a very important back meaning because it really overshadows our whole life. So let me start how Allan Kardec said. Blessed are the merciful. Forgive others so God may forgive you. Reconciliation with your adversaries. The sacrifice most agreeable to God is for you to forgive them. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 7, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And in Matthew chapter 6, verse 14, 15, for if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So, and then the last thing that Allan Kardec wrote was Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, 21, 22. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? And Jesus said unto him, and he said, not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. So what people usually bring this, and what I did when I first read the Bible, is you should forgive people because that is the correct and nice thing to do. And Allan Kardec expounds on that aspect, kind of the aspect that we all understand, which is kind of the the forefront of the message of the New Testament. And that is, Allan Kardec wrote that mercy is a complement to mildness, because the person who is not merciful cannot be mild and pacific. Mercy consists of being able to forgive and forget all offenses. Hate and rancor denotes a spirit without any elevation or magnanimity. Being able to forget offenses is the mark of an elevated soul, which does not perturb itself with the blows it may be dealt. The one is always anxious, of a dark susceptibility and full of bitterness, while the other is calm, full of sweetness and charity. Woe to those who say they'll never forgive. If these people are not already condemned by mankind, then God will surely condemn them. What right has a person to demand forgiveness for their own faults if they are unable to forgive those of others? Does not Jesus teach that mercy must have no limits? So let's talk about kind of the front message of what this is, of forgiveness. Well, when Jesus was talking to the people at the time, which is 0 AD to 30 AD, let's say, and then as the church went on, he was really telling them is be forgiving. And what that whole message really on this part and a lot of the New Testament is a message of getting rid of your primitive emotions, hate, jealousy, anger, and replace them with elevated emotions, love, forgiveness, fraternity, honesty. Because as Allan Kardec wrote, you cannot be elevated in the spirit world by holding on to these primitive emotions. And that is the message I think that almost anybody can understand within the New Testament, and what Jesus said even during that time of a lot of people, even now people hold on. It just as Allan Kardec said, well, I'll never forgive so-and-so for what they did to me. Well, I mean, if people really analyze their life, we've done bad things. I know I have done bad things to other people, and I still regret things that I've done. And isn't the best feeling you ever have is that if you've done something bad to someone and then you're able to get their forgiveness? Doesn't that feel wonderful? And if you can prove yourself, no, I shouldn't have done that. It just shows you how important it is for us to follow our conscience, because when we are that type of person who gets mad and won't forgive, that creates stress within our paraspirit. And when your paraspirit is stressed, your whole body loses the ease of communication and you become less healthy. In fact, studies have done that. People who have spirituality, people who have, believe in religion, believe in something above themselves, are healthier, mentally and physically healthier than people who don't. And again, this is because when you believe in something higher than yourself and you know there's a reason for you being here on earth, you accept things and you also are able, just as Allan Kardec said, forgive offenses. And that is a mark of an elevated soul. And that's part of our training on earth. Now, we'll get on to the backstory in a minute, but let's go with what Allan Kardec said about there's two different ways of forgiving. And this is important also. So Allan Kardec wrote, two different ways of forgiving. The first is noble and great, truly generous without any hidden thoughts, which delicately avoids hurting the self-esteem and susceptibility of the adversary, even when that same adversary has no justification for his or her acts. The second method, on the other hand, is when someone who has been offended or thinks they have been offended imposes humiliating conditions on a supposed adversary, making felt the weight of the pardon, which can only cause further irritation instead of calming, where, upon offering a hand to the offended, this is not done with benevolence, but rather with ostentation, so that the person may say to other, look how generous I am. In these circumstances, a sincere reconciliation is quite impossible for either one of them. No, there is no generosity, only a form of satisfying pride. In every dispute, the one who shows him or herself to be the more conciliatory, who demonstrates more disinterest, charity, and real greatness of soul, will always attract sympathy from those who are impartial. So again, this is an approach. This is the the front story of the New Testament. It's telling you, yes, it's all of this is implied in exactly what Jesus wrote. Forgive, elevate yourself, help others, help by your example, you'll help others also be better. And I understand how easy it is. I mean, when you're at work, what do you do at work most of the time? Well, you gossip about management, or you gossip about so and so and how incompetent they are, or what they look like, or all of these things. And it just shows you that that's just not a generosity of spirit, right? It doesn't mean and they are your adversaries. And some people, you look at them as your adversaries without them even knowing that you are their adversary, right? You're stabbing them in the back by talking to other people behind their back and bringing down their credibility. So even in those ways, you should reconciliate with your management and those type of people. If you do not like who you work for, or if you do not like the company you work for, try to move yourself out. But this is a great way to practice being merciful. And being merciful is being merciful with everyone, even people you don't really like, or people you don't really agree with. And you can, if there's something important, you can certainly stand up for yourself. But if you can, get out of the situation, or reconcile yourself. Talk to them what bothers you, or how can you get along. And why do I say that? I don't say that for you to just to make sure you're nice and keep all the stress level down. I say that for multiple reasons. So one reason is to instill in yourself the habit of being merciful. The more you, with your voice and your thoughts, are merciful, the more it becomes ingrained, and you start rewiring your character and your personality. That will work. You will be surprised how over time, if you catch yourself saying something, bad gossip, or saying something mean, or acting, bad to someone else, then if you can catch yourself and just turn that around and say, oh yeah, I understand, that really will start rewiring your personality. I tell you, because it works for me. It's just over and over again. And when people are just become, how people can just get on your nerves. It happens so much. That still happens to me. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but it happens a lot less. And I tell you, when you leave this physical world and you go into the spirit world, I truly believe that's going to help you 1,000-fold, and to get your mind and your personality so you're much more calm and understanding. Now, Allan Kardec also writes about reconciliation with your adversaries. This is what is in Matthew chapter 5, verse 25 and 26. Agree with thine adversary quickly while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. So, Allan Kardec writes, in the act of pardon, as in general practice of good, there is not only a moral effect, but also a material effect. As is already known, death does not liberate us from our enemies. Now we're getting back. This is what's so great about the Gospel according to Spiritism. We get the story of how most people understood it in the New Testament. And now we're getting the background, we're getting the context of what Jesus said. And this is why Spiritism just gives us so much more information, because there are so many things in the Bible, the New Testament, that Jesus says that sound like, well, that's kind of strange. But then Spiritism fills it all in. I mean, I use this example a lot when Jesus says, "Let the dead bury the dead." Well, how many people have read that when they, and they haven't heard of Spiritism, and they go, "Okay, well, just ignore those people because they're dead." No, that's not what it means at all. Spiritism tells us how the spirits, the nice spirits, help people who have been also good spirits. They help them get out of their physical body and back into the spirit form. The dead do help the dead. Jesus says you don't have to worry. If someone you love and someone you know has been a good, honest, honorable person, that person will be taken care of, even if they died miles from you, even if you weren't by their bedside. It really doesn't matter. They're going to be much happier, and they're going to be helped in their journey away from this physical life into the spiritual life. Now, again, reconcile with your adversaries. Now, when Jesus said, "Thou shalt by no means come out till thou have paid the uttermost farthing," right? The last penny. Well, why would Jesus say that? Because, someone just says there's lagging Wi-Fi issues. Is there any issues for anyone else? It looks okay for me, but on my side, but I don't see, and it looks like I have good. Anyone else have issues? Please let me know. But I don't see any on my side for this live stream. So I'll continue on. So what really they mean by that is that if we do something terrible to someone, it may not stay with us in just one life. And in fact, Allan Kardec talks about this even more. This is what he says: spirits in the afterlife frequently pursue with great hate all those for whom they bear rancor. From this we understand the falsity of the proverb, "The poison dies with the beast," when it is applied to mankind. The evil spirit waits for the other whom he does not like to return to a physical body, where he or she is partially captive, in order to be more easily tormented. They hurt him and they harm affections. The cause of the majority of cases of obsession lies within this fact, especially those cases which present some gravity, such as the subjugations and possession. The person who is either obsessed or possessed is almost always a victim of vengeance. The motive will be found in their past lives, in which the one who is suffering gave cause for this result. God allows this to happen in order to punish the evil which was originally committed, or, if this is not the case, for the lack of indulgence and charity through the refusal to grant a pardon. Consequently, from this point of view of future tranquility, it is important that each person makes amends for all grievances which may have been caused to neighbors as soon as possible. So let's talk about this. You really don't want to have unreconciled problems with people. The spirit world doesn't like it, and so they'll do a couple things. One is, and I've known cases like that, is if you have something that you're really at loggerheads with someone, you may be born in your next life. You'll be born in the same family. You may be brother and sister, or someone who had great passion and treated that person terribly, but loves them, right? They might be born brother and sister, so the woman or the man would have to love them with a brotherly or sisterly love instead of this unleashed passion. Or it could be an uncle or an aunt, or anything. Is that you'll be born into the same family, so you're together and you learn to reconcile your past differences. Now, as Allan Kardec just wrote about, you may have spirits who are not incarnate, who are in the spirit world who are actually trying to hurt you and, and make your life miserable. And this, again, is one of the ways as how the spirit world fights evil, right? How they're going to let that person be obsessed and bothered. And that person, when they go back to the spirit world, will understand why they were a victim of vengeance. And they will inside their mind, they will say, I will never do that again. Right. And this is, as I said, when you think of in our movies, the good guys goes into town but how does the good guy work? He usually kills everybody. Well, that doesn't work in the spirit world because no one can be killed. We're all immortal. So all you're doing by killing a bad person is you're sending them back to the lower zone or the dark abyss where they'll just keep doing bad. And of course, what happens then is, that person didn't get to be on earth to learn their lessons, to learn through their trials and tribulations, the lessons they needed to learn to be a better person. Now, when I say the spirit world fights evil with evil, so when that bad person then goes back into the dark abyss, who are they surrounded with? They are surrounded with people exactly like them, are similar to them. So what that means is they get treated as they treat others. Finally, almost everyone who's in the dark abyss or the lower zone, the umbral, as the Portuguese, it says in Portuguese, is they find, I don't like this. I don't like being treated as I treat people. I don't like, being treated like I'm dirt or I'm a slave or being treated sarcastically all the time. And they finally get tired of it and they ask for help. That is how we should also help others in our physical life, is we should understand the person who's bugging the heck out of us is many times, there's a couple things. Many times that person is there for a reason to challenge us and to test our patience, for us to learn how to be more patient. And that person can also be an immature spirit. So I also have a question here. What about the second death? So I'm not quite understanding what you mean. In what context is the second death? So if you can expand on that, so I will answer that question, but I'm not quite following that. So that person will eventually become a better person, but they'll have to go through many, many lives. Now, let's talk about the person who's bugging you. Now, if you can get in your heart to look at that person differently, because what happens when someone gets, we get mad at someone, we personalize that and we say, I hate that person. Instead of personalizing and saying what a terrible person that is to cause you a problem, you need to look at that person as an actor in a play that fulfilled a part to extract a certain stimuli from you, lose your patience, lose your, use your calm, whatever, for a reason. Because almost nothing happens without a reason here on this planet of atonement, right? Our lives are predestined. We have free will, but our free will isn't that broad. Our free will is mostly as our attitude and some choices. So that is what we have to work out. Now let's talk about subjugation and possession, because there are spirits who really hate, and there are people who really hate other people. When I was at a mediums meeting in Rio de Janeiro, and I'm not a medium, I was just on the outside. This lady came, and then another medium, using the voice of a medium, and she came out and she says, Zika, Zika, Zika. And she said, oh, and she was in the spirit. She had just recently died from the Zika virus. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. I think Zika was really hitting Brazil at that time. And the consoling medium said, well, what happened? And she said, oh, I wanted my neighbor to die from Zika, but instead I died from Zika, and I still want her to die from Zika, which is, I mean, it was hard. You know, I was just it was incredulous look, and I was just, you know, trying not to smile or laugh at that because it just shows the primitiveness of that emotion from that, you know, God love her soul of, you know, she must have been praying to have her neighbor who she hated for some reason. I never did understand the reason, that she would die from Zika. So the and this again, this is another layer of the story, is that this kind of shows you what happens when you pray for something bad. Who knows what's going to happen, because of how the spirit world works. Okay, you want this person to die from Zika? We'll let you die from Zika. And her, you know, her prayer was answered. Someone died from Zika, and yet, you know, here she is, dead, right, in the spirit world, and yet had no clue how she should raise herself up and be better in the spirit world. Which again proves the point that we are who we are when we leave this physical body. So it's, you know, this is the world we live in. We live in our spirit universe, surrounded by different bands of different levels of spirits. We're not, because we're in the planet of atonement. Now, when we're in the planet of regeneration, it's going to be different. But in our current planet, we are surrounded by good, bad, indifferent spirits. Some could be quite primitive. Some could try to harm us. Many will try to help us and love us. But we are surrounded by everyone. It's like anyone who's ever been at a school, like in a middle school or junior high. You've got the whole range of characters. You've got the bullies you want to stay away from. You've got your little coterie of friends, and yet they're all around you, and there's all this negative and positive vibration. So, and this is what, you know, being merciful is all about, is that if you can be merciful in all of this mixed up vibration, and of course we here incarnates on earth, we only see the physicalness, but it's all around us. If we can use our conscience to filter out the bad ideas, the bad vibrations, this will help us train our personality and our character to become a elevated spirit. So I hope that helps explains more about why we should reconcile ourselves with as many people as possible. So the next thing is that Allan Kardec talks about is the best thing you can do, and actually even Socrates said the same thing. It's the best thing you can do is pardon those and become reconciled. And that's what, you know, this is what Allan Kardec said: the true Christian does not offer material gifts to God, since all sacrifice has been spiritualism. And with this precept has gained even more strength. He offers his soul to God, and his soul has to be purified. And Socrates said the same thing. Socrates said, God doesn't want us to kill pigeons and light incense to him. He wants us to become better people. This is why Socrates is, if you can read Socrates, it gives you a lot of insights even in the New Testament, because I believe that Socrates really was, and Allan Kardec says the same thing, it really was the forerunner of Jesus in the New Testament. Kind of like Emanuel Swedenborg was the forerunner, kind of set things up for Allan Kardec. And if you ever could read Swedenborg, he's very good. He had some things he was a little bit wrong at, but he tried his best. He's just, really a great person. So then the next thing that Allan Kardec writes about in this chapter, chapter 10, Blessed are the Merciful, is in Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 and 5. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Which is, and I think a better interpretation is, why look at the sliver in your neighbor's eye when you have a a plank in your own eye. And again, this is another, why are you worrying about someone else? Worry about yourself, right? Don't try and make that other person perfect how you want to be perfect. Make yourself better. And that is so hard for us to do because we're all perfect, aren't we? We can rationalize away whatever we do so easily. And believe me, this is one of the things that we should all work on, and that is accurately analyze your actions and your thoughts and consider every day. In fact, Emmanuel says this in many different ways in this, through the writings of Chico Xavier. If you can analyze what you've done every day a bit and say, okay, well, I did that wrong and I did this wrong and I need to improve on this thing, that is so powerful because the more you can step outside of your life. This is why what Spiritism is so important. This is the whole concept that's in many Spiritist writing, is to get yourself up on that mountain and look down at your life as, you're this experiment in making yourself better, and try and look at yourself as all the faults and the things you need to improve, and then work on those. But don't say, oh, I'm not 100%, I'm going to give up. No. And don't worry about being perfect, because no one's going to be perfect here. It's just as they say, is if we were perfect, we wouldn't be on this planet. We're all here because we are imperfect. We're all here because we have a lot to learn. We don't have to learn everything in one life, but can we learn some things? We have an immortality to learn, an eternity, and we have, I don't know how many millions of lives. It's interesting when people talk about reincarnation. They think, oh yeah, I don't know how many times we've been alive. I believe we've probably been reincarnated in some form, maybe animals or whatever too, just thousands and thousands, maybe millions of times. I shudder to think how slow my own progress has been. But I could be wrong. Maybe we don't reincarnate that many times. I hope not, but I believe that I think we're pretty slow learners. And that is because we have to learn a lot. Imagine what it is to control yourself perfectly. Now, why do we need to control ourselves? And this is I go over every time. Because when you are in the spirit world, thought is action. Your mind controls the environment. Now, when I say your mind controls the environment, and you can control and you can create things in the spirit world, you have to remember that I'm not saying that, okay, every person creates their own idea of heaven. It doesn't really work that way. And it doesn't work that way because you have many spirits in heaven, all within the law of affinity puts you with spirits that are like you. And therefore, the levels of heaven you are is partly your own thoughts, but it also is intermixed with the thoughts of those around you. So on earth, it's objective, right? You are the table is the table, the chair is the chair, the building is the building, the forest is the forest. It doesn't change except with the seasons. In the spirit world, in heaven, the building can shine or not. The trees can change color as you go by because they reflect from your own ideas and personality and character. Things are more subjective. Now, I have a question here. Why does Spiritism not believe in reincarnation into an animal? Let's talk about that for a second. What Spiritism says is we don't regress, we don't retrograde, we don't go backwards. Even if we were on a superior planet, a planet of regeneration, and then we did something pretty wrong, and we had more things to learn, and we go to a planet of atonement, we as our spirit do not regress. We still have free will. We're still learning. We're still probably a little bit more advanced than the other people on the more primitive planet that we went to, we always progress. We may park ourselves at a certain level. Now, in the past, we probably have been animals. I believe in the past, we probably started as this little logical, subroutine or app that has, it's more, more of automatic synapses, right, of things we're supposed to be doing. And then we make it into an ant, we make, some insect, bacteria, and then higher and higher animals. And then finally we have enough into, from the higher animals, let's say an ape or something like that. We can then, they'll let us go to a primitive planet, and we will go, instead of just living by our instincts, we'll have more and more free will. In the spirits book, in the spiritual literature, even animals have some little, nothing's black and white. You don't get everything. It's just like this, boom, boom, boom. Even animals, and you've seen dogs and cats, right? They have some free will. They mostly live on their instinct, but there's some things they do. And so, but here, our free will as a human, our human-like soul, and other planets, we do not, they don't interrupt or interfere with our free will. So I hope that answers the question. No, we do not ever regress in our reincarnation. We only stay the same, or we progress. So, as we're talking about, thoughts are action in the spirit realm. So as you go higher and higher, you're going to be mixed with higher and higher spirits. Your thoughts kind of are all in sync, and without, how else would the spirit world work? This is what's so wonderful about Spiritism. It all becomes so logical. And how else would you have these immense number of spirits with this omniscient, power of thought? Can you imagine everyone here on the earth having the power to create what they want? They would all walk down the streets, and the houses would all turn different colors, and the streets would look different, and the skyline would look different. Everyone who walked by. No, it doesn't work that way. It works that way with people get together, and they work out by their being on a kind of a same level of spirituality. They work out what the environment looks, or then they get together and they say, let's create this building. Let's create this whole environment together. And then that spirit puts that into being, and that tree or that house stays, nothing degrades, right? In time, when you talk about time in the spirit world, time is different. There is duration, as they say. You build that house to last forever, or you build that house to last a certain duration, or until another spirit or superior spirits want something different. And in fact, time, as you can see time, and the higher the spirit, the more they can see. If they're down here on our physical earth, they can see the past, the present, and the future. A pretty base spirit, let's say, a normal spirit, can see some past, present, and some future. The higher spirits can see a longer span of time. Jesus Christ can probably see our lives over a whole arc, maybe thousands of years. I do not know. But that is, the higher you go, the more you can see this, which becomes really strange when you think, how can they know the future? And I think a lot of that, you see that from people's NDEs, and you see hints of that, is where they say, well, they see this mathematical progress of everyone, and they can, with statistics, they can usually figure out what they're going to do. So if you do a Monte Carlo type simulation, enough times, you kind of say what's the line that they're going to follow, and so I'm sure that's in there. I mean, it's just, there's so much things we don't understand, but this, what Spiritism does tell us, it is just amazing that they can see our future. And in fact, when the first Spiritist meeting, mediums meeting, I should say, my wife and I were given a message. And our message was, and I've said this before, it's that, you have failed time and time again. But it said, but according to the Father, you're here, you're here to help talk about Spiritism. And it was really interesting. And then again, it says, there was something like, I've done something wrong, but and they said twice, according to the Father, you have been chosen to do this, this task. I'm not going to call it a mission. I'm not probably worthy of a mission. I'm worthy of just something that may help a few people. And I thought to myself, it's like, the spirits around me are kind of probably trying to help me on helping talk about Spiritism. I think of like what it would be like if I was on a team in a company, and I've been in a situation where I was a project manager, led a team, and then a manager comes by and goes, I want you to have Ralph on that team. I go, Ralph? He goes, he's incompetent. It's going to be terrible. It's not going to help. But then I think, okay, the VP or president, they want Ralph. Okay, I'll put Ralph on there. But if Ralph is on there and the project doesn't work, I can blame someone and I can say, hey, you made me take Ralph. You ruined the project. So I can protect myself if something goes wrong. That's kind of how I thought. I thought, well, maybe that's, it must have been how other people thought when, they said, when they said, well, the Father commanded us to put you on this team. And I don't know if I'm interpreting that right, because I may interpret it wrong. It's like, okay, you're going to use this guy, but even though everyone else around you knows that you're a screw up, because I've been told I've done things wrong over and over and over again. In fact, everything that people tell me, mediums tell me about my past lives, I've never heard anything good I've ever done. It's always something bad. So, and as I said before, I'm hoping I can set myself an example of someone who is not a very good person can improve themselves through the trials and tribulations they go through. Thank heavens, thank Jesus, thank God, of things that teach us. And I've probably been through a lot worse lives. I probably should kiss the ground every day that I'm on a life that I'm not just tortured or something for all the things that I've been told that I've done wrong. So I must have been through some pretty bad past lives that tell me to kind of hit me on the side of the head, because I'm sure I have been a very slow learner in the past, to tell me that I need to be a nicer person. So anyway, I went off tangent there, but it's very interesting. And again, this is, even though I'm going off tangent, and you should do the same. This is why the Gospel according to Spiritism, when you read these things, it's really interesting. And in fact, when you start reading about near-death experiences and you see these different near-death, people are told the same thing. When they were saying, forgiveness and look at other people, there's this one near-death experience of this woman said, I've always been very judgmental of other people. And I've always had a quick temper. And then when I went to my NDE, they put me into this situation where not only could I see my own thoughts, but I could see the thoughts of other people. And what I found out is everyone wants to be loved, and everyone feels bad when someone's being mean to them, yelling at them, or thinking they're not very good. And no one wants to have that caused to them. And so this lady who had NDE just completely changed their attitude. So this is why from NDEs and reading about Spiritism, you can really kind of broaden your horizons. And then this takes us to the next part within chapter 10, which is, do not judge others if you do not wish to be judged. In return, he is that without sin, let him be the first to cast the stone. Now, I just had a question here. Do mediums have the ability to see our past lives? Some do, some don't. And let me tell you this, many people are not permitted to know their past lives because it may actually be bad for them to know their past lives. It may not be helpful for them to learn the lessons they should be learned. That's probably why when I've heard about my past lives, I'm only allowed to learn some things, and then those things, are a stimuli to help me think of them. But let me say this about past lives. You can pretty well judge what you have done incorrectly in your past lives, I should say, by what is happening to you now. If you've had a terrible marriage, if you have had a other things, right? Someone stole money from you, things like that. Then that usually means is that you will also have that you've probably done the same thing to someone else or something similar. So if you're interested in your past life, look at your present life, and you can pretty figure out the areas you should improve upon. Why? Why do I say that? Because this is the whole process, and this is what Spiritism is so great. It tells us is the process of which we improve ourselves is composed of karma and reincarnation. Some of them. There's other things. Let's look at those two first. The life you're going through now that you've been incarnated into, that plan has been created by probably a majority of your past life by the karma that you accumulated, good and bad, and therefore your lesson plan, by taking into account of the karma you had in your previous life, is what your life is today. Your next life, your karma, is going to go into your record. Your next life is going to be based on what you do in this life. Not wholly, right? There's some things you have to broaden. There's some things you're going to take over, but probably a majority. So that is why, so that is kind of the way to think about these things. Okay. So we were saying about not judging others. So when he was saying that he is without sin, this is what Allan Kardec writes, that he that is without sin amongst you, let him cast the first stone. Jesus makes indulgence the first duty towards others because there is no one who does not need it for themselves. This is what NDEs have also seen. They need indulgence, right? We are all inside ourselves, these little kids who want love and appreciation and affirmation. Kardec goes on to write, he also teaches that we must never judge others with more severity than we would wish to be judged. So true. Nor condemn in others with that which we condone in ourselves. Before chastising someone for a fault, first let us see if that same censure could be applied to ourselves. Reproach may be launched against a person for two reasons: to suppress evil or to discredit the persons whose acts are criticized. In this last intention, there's absolutely no excuse, because here exists only malice and slander. So what is he saying? He's saying that don't discredit the person. What does that do? It doesn't teach him anything. But if you're trying to reproach a person to say, don't do this, this is not good for you, as Allan Kardec says, suppress evil. I think now a more modern spirit life is suppress kind of a wrongful act, or maybe you're on the wrong path. That is laudable. And Allan Kardec says that's laudable and becomes even a duty in certain cases, and a good may come of it. And then you probably have been a device to help that person, maybe unknowingly, but you're probably a device to help that person. And because if we don't try and help others from doing things like this, then we don't help society as a whole. So I want to thank everyone for being with me tonight. I think we've come to the end of our time, and I would just like for everyone to know that if you would like to learn more about Spiritism, There's a couple ways of doing it. One is I have my blog, nwspiritism.com, and I also have a book where I talk about my own personal experiences on Spiritism. It's called The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, How They Impact Your Daily Life. And I talk about my own journey of how Spiritism helps me, how I look at the signs and signals of Spiritism. Now, if you want to talk to someone and get interested more in Spiritism, I suggest you go to spiritismstudy.org, and you can set up a time to talk to me or other people, and we'll just talk about what you want to talk about Spiritism. No, there's nothing complete. We're not going to ask you questions. You have to answer something or study something you don't want to study. We'll just talk and see how you want to have more things. So, and I love that. And I really would love more people do that, because I learned so much about how people look at different issues and different aspects. And because everyone learns different, right? Some people will read the Spirit's book and go, oh, that's perfect. That's how I was, right? But then again, this is why I wrote my books, is because I know some people, that it's too dry, or just, I don't know, it just doesn't hit them the right way. And that's why I consolidate a lot of this learning and put it in a different format. The other thing I'd like people to do is tell your friends, and if they have Netflix, please watch the movie Kardec. It is a great movie on Netflix, and it kind of goes through how Kardec wrote the Spirits book, how he became interested in Spiritism, how he started believing in spirits from a person like me, like, oh, ghosts, that's just, figment of your imagination. So it should be interesting. I would recommend everyone look at that. So again, if you can, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, our BitChute, our BitTube, and please tell your friends, share this presentation with other Facebook groups or whoever you can. And I want to tell everyone, God bless to everyone tonight. God bless you.